Hi everyone, this is the side arguing that no, juvenile life sentences are not cruel and unusual punishment. I am Sierra Dixon, and I will be presenting for Zoe Brinton, Sabrina Korpak, Jordan Entz, and Hunter Grimes. The question posed in this issue is a challenging one. On one hand, it may seem reasonable to imprison an offender who has committed a heinous crime such as murder to a life term without the possibility of parole. On the other hand, it may be draconian and perhaps even unenlightened to impose this penalty, except in the most extreme cases. Determining the appropriate sentence for a teenager convicted of murder presents grave and challenging questions of morality and social policy. Our role, however, is to apply the law, not to answer such questions. The juvenile justice system was established to prevent children being caught up in an adult world. The court recognizes that a child's brain is not fully developed, but there is still consequences for breaking the law. Currently, the United States is the only nation that sentences people for crimes committed before turning 18. In 2005, the Supreme Court ruled that juveniles cannot be sentenced to death. There is still a sentencing option for 29 states. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Louisiana have 2/3 of juvenile life without parole sentences, and it is not an option for 28 states. $74.2 million people 18 and under are living in the United States. Only 2,100 juveniles, less than 0.002%, are serving life without parole sentences. Approximately 57% of adjudicated youth are placed on probation. 86,900 delinquents are detained, confined in public and private detention centers, group homes, camps, ranches, and other correctional institutions. Only a few who have committed violent crimes are sentenced to life without parole. Many who are sentenced to life without parole have criminal histories. On studies which have a 12-month follow-up period, the average rate of rearrest for a delinquent or criminal offense was 55%. The average reconviction or readjudication rate was 33%, and the average reincarceration or reconfinement rate was 24%. Alyssa Hartwig states, "The juvenile system is a slap on the wrist compared to the adult system. If juveniles get away with the crimes they are committing, they will take no responsibility for their actions." The difference between decency versus leniency. Our society shows mercy towards the guilty and can be seen as a form of decency, and a maturing society may abandon harsh punishments that it comes to view as unnecessary or unjust. But decency is not the same as leniency. We have to look at the fact that this individual committed a crime regardless if they are an adult or a juvenile. As Thomas states in the textbook, we must have decency when convicting a juvenile, but we can't be lenient or they will never learn from their mistakes. Hickey states, "A decent society protects the innocent from violence. A mature society may determine that this requires removing those guilty of the most heinous murders from its midst, both as protection for its other members and as a concrete expression of its standards of decency." In the case of Miller v. Alabama, Evan Miller and Colby Smith killed Cole Cannon. Cannon was killed by beatings of a baseball bat in his trailer by being lit on fire. At the age of 14, Evan Miller was transferred to Lawrence County Circuit Court to be tried as an adult. Miller was sentenced to a mandatory term of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Miller filed a motion for a new trial, arguing that sentencing a 14-year-old to life without the possibility of parole is cruel and unusual punishment. The Supreme Court of Alabama denied Miller's request. In the case of Sullivan v. Florida and Graham v. Florida, minors were committed of non-homicidal crimes, and both are arguing that their life sentence is cruel and unusual punishment violating the Eighth Amendment. Chief Justice John Roberts offers a compromise, asking, wouldn't it make sense to incorporate the consideration of the juvenile status into the proportionality review, so that if you do have a case where it's the 17-year-old who is 1 week shy of his 18th birthday, and it is the most grievous crime spree you can imagine, you can determine that in that case, life without parole may not be disproportionate. But you would argue that these are the facts here. If it is a less grievous crime, and there is, for example, a younger defendant involved, then in that case, maybe it is disproportionate. Why doesn't that seem more sensitive? It avoids all of the line drawing problems we have been discussing. Florida states that a life sentence is not disproportionate in the case of Sullivan and Graham versus Florida, when imposed for a violent crime committed by a juvenile. The court's decision will clarify the type of sentence that is constitutionally appropriate to impose on a juvenile defendant for a non-homicide offense. In current events, this article details inmates in Michigan who are serving out life sentences for crimes they committed when they were minors. Each and every case is being reviewed and is in the process of resentencing. Crimes such as 17-year-old Burtis, who sexually assaulted his friend and then stabbed her 35 times after being beaten with a wrench, sentencing for life is being maintained. Crimes like 15-year-old Armstrong, who committed second-degree murder, have been resentenced. In conclusion, our nation must show decency but must not show leniency to prevent reoccurrence of crimes. Cases like Miller v. Alabama show that heinous crimes will be punished with a life sentence without possibility of parole. There may be a compromise that allows consideration of the age of the perpetrator and the severity of their crime, as told by Chief Justice John Roberts. Thank you for listening.